We'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. My name is James Martin. If you haven't met me, I serve as the lay leader here at the church. Have a great set of presentations for you today. Trying to do a little bit of the state of the church, where we're at, where we're going. Today we'll have Jay Allison here presenting the finances. Pastor Barber doing the United Methodist Church in general and what's going on. Pastor Sisson, of course, talking about our church here and all the exciting things that have been going on. And then I'll close us up, and hopefully we'll have time for a few questions at the end. So if you wouldn't mind joining me in a prayer, or I'll pray for us. Father, thank you for every seat that has been filled here today. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of this room, we thank you. Only you truly know what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, hints, and daily instructions. We have talents, ability, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail and the end that every project will go through. Every project, every season, every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for your good. Amen.
All right, thank you. So my name is Jay Allison. We've been attending Grace, my family has, since 2002, and I chair the finance team for this year. Someone give us a finance update. As James said, we're sharing updates about our goals, about our finances, other exciting things that are happening at Grace. Before I get started with the finance slides, does anybody need a copy of the handout for the slides? Raise your hand if you need a copy, and I have an assistant who will bring you some. Did y'all already get them all? Awesome, thank you. Okay. So thank you for being here this morning. Thanks for taking time away from your Sunday school studies to hear about the state of our church. And if you're here, to me, it means you're invested in the future of our church, and I appreciate everybody being here this morning. Y'all are all spread out really far, which is making me have to pivot on my stool all the way around to see you. I am sitting down this morning not to just be a dork, but because I want this to feel a little less formal than me standing up and giving a lecture. This is not a sermon. This is not a business presentation. This is some of us who have data sharing it with the folks in the church who want that data. So anytime we try to summarize 9 months of financial information into a few charts and some words, we have to leave out a lot of detail. So I'm happy to answer questions, especially afterwards over email, but also if we have a little bit of time, we may be able to fit a few questions in this morning, especially if there's something that's clarification. If we get into something that's more detailed, then we may need to defer that till after the service because we are trying to squeeze this in between the two services and finish about 10 till. So as we open our season of stewardship today, one thing I'd like us to take away from today is the future of Grace is in our hands. We need all of our help to complete these goals. We need all of our giving to support the church, and we need you and your families to keep Grace going and to keep Grace growing. There's going to be a little bit of uncomfortableness probably with some of the stuff we're talking about today because we're talking about the actual financial state of the church, not the preferred financial state of the church. And so with that in mind, let's talk about some hard things. Predicting the future is hard. Having faith is hard. Living in the post-pandemic world is sometimes hard. And persisting through disaffiliation is hard too. So if you know our family well, you'll know that Betsy and I both drive old trucks, but hers is a little bit fancier than mine. It has a little display that tells you how much further you can go before you run out of fuel. This is very helpful, but the prediction isn't always accurate. Sometimes, if you've been doing a lot of city driving and then you head out on a road trip, you might be able to go a lot further than the display indicates. On the other hand, if you've been doing a lot of highway driving and then you head out to run errands, you might get stranded on the side of the road if you trust the display to tell you how far you can go. And this is kind of corny, but my point is, even for something as simple as an automobile trip computer, predicting the future is hard. And it's even harder when we talk about predicting giving for next year. So wisdom is defined as experience, knowledge, and good judgment. And at Grace, we have 24 years of financial records, so we have the experience part covered. For knowledge, we know what our ministries need in terms of funding. And this is the time of year when we start thinking about our budget for next year, and this is really where judgment comes in. But how do we work faith into that equation? Faith can be hard sometimes, especially about money, and especially when we're trying to be good stewards of what God has given to Grace. If you've read the parable of the talents, how should we apply that to our church finances? Is the lesson that we should be conservative or at least pragmatic with our financial planning? Or is the lesson that we should step out in faith and take risks? And does that answer change over time? Grace was founded in the late 90s, and from this chart you can see that this faith has been rewarded. As giving has grown, so has our ability to fund our growing ministries. Planning in the post-pandemic world is hard. Grocery stores may not have the items you're looking for. There may not be an employee to fill the shelves, even if the items are in stock in the back. Even when the items are on the shelves, it may cost more than you're comfortable with because inflation has been growing and interest rates are super high. So in that type of environment, how cautious should we be with our church resources? And then lastly, remaining part of the United Methodist Church during the era of disaffiliation is hard. Are we growing or are we shrinking? What is the conference going to need from us? How can we continue to support our ministries and our Methodists? And what does our future look like as a church, as a conference, and as a denomination? These are all the things we've been trying to take into account as we look ahead to next year's budget. We set our budget so that we can fund as many ministries as we expect our giving to cover. So if you are better interested in understanding the breakdown of our budget, let me know. There is a pie chart in the stewardship packet. If you haven't pictures up, they're out in the hall. Over the past 24 years, Grace has been blessed to have accumulated a comfortable reserve. We have a long-established financial policy that we should maintain a reserve of 10 to 25% of our annual budget for emergencies, for lean times, for things that are out of the ordinary. And our average budget over the last 5 years has been about $720,000. So to abide by our policies, we should maintain a reserve of $72,000 to $180,000. And we've been fortunate that our reserve has been greater than that upper limit for the last 5 years. So in other words, we ended up with a little too much held in reserve, and we needed to move some of that from the just-in-case fund to the let's plan to use it fund. And so for the last several years, we've set our budget target above our predicted giving because we knew we could cover that spending gap from the reserves. And again, we keep the reserves to help us through the lean years. Some years, we did not end up needing it, even when we set the budget to plan to spend it, but some years we did. So in 2021, we needed it. You can see on this chart the big drop there, and it looks like we're gonna need it again for this year. The good news is that we have it to spend, and that's why we have it there. Next slide, please. I don't know how well y'all can see this, but this slide is one of the reasons you have handouts. So last month I shared a similar update to this in the church council meeting, which was 8 months through the year. So here's an updated report now that we are 9 months or 3/4 of the way through the year. Coming out of last year, we modeled a modest increase in giving. We predicted that giving this year would grow 3% more than last year. But giving so far this year is not matching that expectation, at least from a linear standpoint. We projected that 3/4 of the way through this year, giving would be closer to $500,000 by now, but so far we've only received $445,000. So we are over 10% less than we had predicted from a giving standpoint this year. So we're making up for some of that with our budget spend. We certainly aren't going out of our way to spend money we don't have. We've been able to hold back on filling a staff position. We've pulled some funds from the trustees reserve to pay for some of this year's expenses, and we're asking everybody to watch their expenses. We're also predict that, like most years, giving will rise slightly at the end of the year. So typically, fourth quarter is about 15% bigger than the other 3/4. So we have that modeled in like the last few years. But right now, we do not expect total giving this year to reach our original prediction. So you can see all those numbers. I don't really want to read them to you, but the summary of 2023 is that we are not operating in the black, but we are mostly operating according to plan. Next slide, please. So here is the challenge we have looking ahead to next year. We know that our reserves are big enough that we can do something similar again next year. We can continue to maintain our current ministry levels for another year. But by the time we're heading into 2025, we really need giving to match spending. What seems lean right now might really just be the new normal. We've reduced our average spending over the last 3 years compared to the 4 years before that. but giving has fallen off even more. So how this next quarter goes will really set the tone heading into next year. Was 2021 an anomaly, or are 2021 and 2023 now the new normal? Is 2024 going to be more like 2022 where giving was up, or more like 2023 where giving was down? That's part of the hard part about predicting the future. We may have some exciting decisions to make next year about what ministries we can add or what ministries we can grow. But we may also have some tough decisions to make next year if we need to reduce spending down to the current level of giving. And just so you know, we may or may not be able to wait until the end of next year to make that decision, depending on what giving looks like Q4, Q1, Q2. So I mentioned that in the packet out in the hall, there's a pie chart. Our budget is about 40% staff and about 40% facilities, which includes the mortgage and the upkeep, and 10% conference apportionments, which means that all of our ministries are only 10% of our overall budget. And so that does not leave much room for reducing spending without making some fundamental changes. So I want to be optimistic. For now, our giving this year looks to be more in line with 2011, but our attendance this year looks to be back to the pre-pandemic levels of 2019, like the highest it's ever been. I'm hopeful that our growing attendance this year will lead to similar growth in giving next year, and it certainly seems possible. But where are we now? We are not in the green with giving exceeding the budget. We are not yet in the red, where we need to make some drastic changes immediately, although we may be there by mid-next year. We are solidly in the yellow. Things are under control short-term, less certain long-term. On average, giving is down 11% over the last 3 years compared to the previous 4 years. And overall giving is trending downward over the last 10 years plus. So our Q4 giving average over the last 4 years is 178K, but our projection for this quarter is only 165K. So that's a big difference for us to adjust to. So giving over the next 2 quarters will set the tone for what we can and what we cannot do next year. So we're now back to where we started. The future of Grace is in our hands. Our giving this next quarter will help us set the direction for next year. Our giving next year will set the direction for years to come. And we need you to let us know, are we driving on the highway or are we driving in the city? Are we a church that is growing? Are we a church that is maintaining? Or are we a church that is shrinking? I've thrown some charts up there quickly. I realize that's a lot of data for you to try to absorb. We're trying to cram 9 months of financial data into 3 or 4 pictures. So I'm happy to answer questions about the data. I've shared all the details behind it. I'm also happy to discuss the way we estimate things and the estimates we're using to model the upcoming quarter. On the first page of your handout, it should be my email address, so feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have. And then do we want to take time for questions now or wait till the end? So if you do have a financial question, we may have time in this session to talk about it. If not, I went to early church, so I'll be hanging out in the hall after this if you want to talk to me about it then.
All right, I'm just going to take just a few quick seconds just to give you an update on the state of the church as far as like the United Methodist Church in our conference. So over the past year, the North Alabama Conference, the conference that we're in of the United Methodist Church, has undergone some changes. So we held 3 special sessions of the annual conference outside of our regular meeting in June. So these special sessions took place in December 2022, May 2023, and September 2023. So these special sessions were to provide a graceful exit for clergy and churches who felt led to leave the denomination. So at these special sessions, the annual conference delegates of the North Alabama Conference voted to approve the disaffiliations of around 348 churches. So we currently have 290 churches remaining in 10 new communities of faith that are popping up in our conference. So as we await the General Conference of the United Methodist Church in Charlotte, North Carolina from April 23rd to May 3rd of 2024, the 290 churches, clergy, and lay members of the North Alabama Conference continue to move forward, planting new churches and new expressions of United Methodism across North Alabama. So the deadline to submit petitions for General Conference ended last month. The petitions that will be presented and voted on by the General Conference has yet to be decided. But if you would like to keep up with what's going to happen in General Conference, please refer to the North Alabama Conference website, which is umcna.org, and the United Methodist Church website, which is umc.org, to see news about General Conference.
So we've had a chance this morning to hear a little bit about bigger picture, what's happening in the United Methodist Church in general, but also what's happening financially within our local congregation. And I want to share some exciting things that are happening, what I am seeing, what I am feeling, what I am experiencing in our community here at Grace. Just to give us some worship updates. First of all, I just want to acknowledge how excited I am, how we are to have our associate, Pastor Megan, to be with us and serving with us here at Grace. With the changes in the United Methodist Church, there were pastors looking for churches, and that was a difficult time. And what I love, what we do best here at Grace, I think, is really looking forward to that future with positivity. And taking time to bring Megan on has been a huge gift, I think. She's, you know this, serving in worship each week. She is teaching, helping to teach throughout the week, and on Sunday evenings as well. Her particular ministry focus is around small group studies, so helping us grow when it comes to spiritual things, but also congregational care and being a part of that team as far as caring for our congregation. So I'm extremely pleased that Megan is here and a part of our staff. And thinking about worship growth, I've got some numbers for you. I'm not typically a number and percentage kind of guy, but I am today. So far, we are averaging, just to let you know, about 248 in weekly worship. Now, that's just not just us here, but also online. Often Sundays, you'll notice we'll have more people watching online or throughout the week than we even have in some of our services. So 248 average. That's a growth of 14% since this time last year, and it's a growth of 33% since 2021. So to me, that's exciting as we are living in this post-pandemic world. People are coming back. And each Sunday, we are seeing, you might come, some of those of you who are regulars and not realize who people are. We are having consistent visitors almost every Sunday, and folks who are coming back. So to me, that's very exciting. Also, we've talked about it. You'll hear about it in worship today if you haven't been already, but we're in this season of stewardship and thinking about next year. And for some of us, we look at these and we're like, oh, the church is asking me to give again. I see stewardship, and we'll hear a little bit about this in Megan's sermon today, but as an opportunity for us to grow. We are all in different soil climates of our lives. And where we are is important to really consider. And where we are in our giving, and I'm not just talking about our financial giving, but our spiritual giving, our serving, where we are in our relationships with God. So to me, stewardship is an exciting time to kind of reevaluate and see where we are in our lives individually and where we want to go with God in our lives individually. So Stewardship 2024, if you haven't picked up your packets, you'll have an opportunity to do that. As far as membership, anybody have a guess at how many members we have here at Grace? 500. Other guesses? 600. You're a little closer. 598 is our membership here at Grace. Just to let you know, and thinking about this past year, or this year, we have had 10 new members since the beginning of this year. We've had 2 baptisms, 2 infant baptisms as well. And we've had 5 members who have passed away. And if you look at those lists, that list of folks who have passed away, they have been our cornerstone people in so many powerful ways. 5 is a little unusual for us to have that many, but 5 members who've passed. In regards to goals, I'm extremely excited. Our thrift store at Grace is in the process of being opened. From what I understand, their goal is to have it open the weekend of our fall festival, which is coming up October the 28th. So they're open on Fridays and Saturdays. You'll hear more about that. We have a huge team of volunteers who have given of themselves to make this a reality, that we have a thrift store here. Are y'all open this morning? Or the doors? If you want to see what it's like, if you go all the way down the hallway, take a left before you enter the gym, and a right before you exit the building, that's where our thrift store is going to be, and it is. So if you want to see what it's like and what's going on, I'm sure they will be more than happy to open it up for you. The digital sign, if you remember, was another of our 3 goals for 2023, 2024. We have met those folks who have been focused on this goal and wanted to be focused for 2 times already. Our next meeting is tomorrow night. Any of you who are interested in being a part of that, tomorrow night at 6:30, we are in the midst of kind of gathering quotes for signs and what that's going to be. So that's kind of where we are in that process. If you want to learn more, come and be a part of that. And then the third goal, if you remember, was building a pavilion, an open-air pavilion on our property. We will be beginning that focus next year. So if you notice our 3 goals, they all require some money, right? And this is over and above our regular giving. This is not included in budget money. So this is over and above in addition to our regular giving. So we've tried to be responsible in spreading these goals out a little bit in the 2 years that we're focused on, and we might need to go into a third to be able to do that. But that's the thinking behind the goals. But I know some of you are really gung-ho about the pavilion. That's coming up, I promise. I promise. So beginning of next year. Some fun and creative things that are happening here at Grace I want to mention. And I want to name specifically the missions team. In an effort to raise money for our continued support next door at Providence Elementary, they have been doing some creative things. They just had this wonderfully successful silent auction and dinner. $2,400 was raised. In a financially tight year, some of their team members have been working the concession stand at Trash Panda games. And they are getting paid individually, and these members, our team members, are donating what they're making at the games to our mission efforts here. So I think over $2,000 has been raised, and they haven't been doing it the whole baseball season, mainly just towards the end of the season. So I want to acknowledge this because, again, in a financially tight year, our teams, our members here are really trying to think out of the box. How can we continue supporting, building, loving on specifically Providence next door Elementary, but how can we keep going? How can we grow this ministry? So creative things are happening, and I'm so appreciative of that. Another thing that I'm excited about, our confirmation class this year. We have 10 6th and 7th graders who are going through confirmation right now, learning about, and some of them are in this room right now, who are learning about their faith, who are learning about the United Methodist Church and our history, our community, who we are as people of faith. And we have 10 wonderful adult mentors who are meeting with us periodically, who are pouring into our students, who are lifting them up, who are here with them in times of our gatherings. So I am extremely excited about being a part. Y'all, they are a talkative bunch. But I love it. They are excited about being together, and they are excited about growing in their faith. Pastor Megan and I are teaching or alongside our youth during this time, so it's been a very exciting time. Some new ministries that are happening. I hope that you have seen JAM, which is Jesus and Me, for our 4th and 5th graders. These are our older kids that might not connect with, let's go do bubbles out in the parking lot, but they are about to become members of our youth group. So they are meeting once a month on Sunday evenings. Tonight is our 2nd meeting, and I think their first time they had 13 or so 4th and 5th graders. So to me, and kids brought their friends. To me, that's exciting. New ministry that's happening. Our new women's studies that are happening on Tuesdays, but also Thursday mornings now, is exciting to me. We're starting our new Wednesday night family fellowship activities this Wednesday. Dinner at 5, classes at 6. We are trying to do this in different sessions. So we just ended a session with classes. We're starting brand new classes. One that I'm teaching for new members. Pastor Megan is teaching on evangelism. Melissa is teaching one on prayer. Eric Bagwell is teaching on art in our faith. So we're trying to mix in some creative, spiritual, different aspects to that. So if you've never been on a Wednesday night, try us out. Come and be a part. It's a great kind of shot in the arm, I think, in the middle of the week. A great opportunity to be with brothers and sisters. And if you don't want to stay for the classes, come for the meal. Be a part. Our food and fellowship take care of us in that sense as well. There are a lot of things. I could go on for a while, but there are a lot of exciting things happening. We hear the message of the finances. We need to hear this, y'all. Where we are, where we hope to be, what it's going to take for us to step out and, with faith, give and serve. We hear about the United Methodist Church. How many of you have been nervous about hearing all these stories around us of churches leaving? It's a scary time to think that some of our brothers and sisters are leaving the United Methodist Church, starting new denominations. But to me, it's also a time of growth, a time of opportunity. We have never been in this season as a denomination. And our bishop is constantly pushing. We celebrate and give thanks for those congregations that have left, for their ministries, but we are celebrating and giving thanks for our congregations that have chosen to remain United Methodist. And we're lifting up, we're finding ways to pump some energy and excitement into them. Pastor Megan mentioned again, there are 10 new communities of faith, expressions of faith happening around our annual conference. So to me, in the midst of the pain and kind of scary times, there is excitement and joy as we experience some growth. So I know that this is a lot, all of this on Sunday morning, throwing it at you in between services. Again, we might have a few minutes for some questions, but what I want to close with, if you are not involved in a small group or some kind of experience outside Sunday mornings, I really want to encourage you to consider that, to prayerfully consider how you can get involved and serve in new ways or grow in your faith in new ways. I've heard some folks feel really disconnected right now. And part of that is on us individually. And, well, what am I doing to stay connected? You know, I'm responsible for who I am in my journey of faith. And if I'm feeling disconnected, what can I do? What are the spiritual disciplines? We're talking about this in worship. What are the ways that I can nurture my own faith and in the process nurture those around me? So if you're not involved, find ways to get involved. Pastor Megan and I are here to support you, encourage you, do all that we can to support you in that process too. So you've got 4 of us here who have shared this morning. Are there questions? We've got about 5 minutes. I know this is a lot, but this is just scratching the surface. Are there questions? Yes.
I just want everyone to know that the cost for the thrift shop to open did not come out of any church money. We ran a rummage sale in April that brought in almost $4,000. So $1,600 of it was to make the room finished, and we bought racking and some things that we needed for the shop. But we still had plenty of money. We are not asking for money. We are making money. And even before we were open, I've already made 1 deposit. Because people want to buy something, let them.
Yeah, they had a great rummage sale that was seed money to get the room prepared. So many of you guys have already donated things. That room is packed, ready for opening. And as you continue to clean out things, they will take smaller items for sure for donation. And y'all, again, this is not for us. It's a way for us to reach out in our community and care for those around us, make connections. So that's just one example of the great things that you guys are doing here at Grace. Other questions? Yes.
I can find that out, but I don't know.
I'm sorry. Jenny Jones had a little brain moment. Jenny Jones is our financial secretary here at the church. She does this volunteer, and she could give us that information. I think in years past, do you have any idea? How many giving units do we have? About 120 giving units here at Grace. Again, our membership is $5.98, but those giving units represent families, individuals as well. So, good question. Theron?
You said apportionment was about 10%. Is that a straight line percentage of our? It's a straight line percentage.
Yeah, so each month we give to the conference 10% of what we receive back. So if you look at our budget would be modeled with 10% of the bottom line of the budget. So the question was about apportionments. If you look at our budget, we model conference apportionments to be 10% of the total budget, assuming giving will match the budget. But in actuality, we give to the conference 10% of what we receive each month. So it is not 10% of the budget, it's 10% of the giving.
And that was a change that was made a couple of years ago, 3 years ago maybe.
One thing, it is also the general fund, 10%
Yeah, so what Toy added on was that's giving to the general fund. So if you give to to a restricted fund, we don't include that when we're calculating our 10% giving to the conference. Theron.
Do we publish what the restricted funds are? Do we know, as members, do we know what other fees are?
So giving each week to those restricted funds shows up in the bulletin. If you're looking for the totals, that's something that we can share. Each team member, or each team lead gets a report each month of what their budget is, what their spending is, and what their restricted fund availability is.
About how much money do we have in restricted giving right now?
I'm looking to Toy.
Yeah, it's that balance, I think the balance is about 130,000.
So about $130,000 set aside for specific purposes within the church, set aside by the donors of the money for specific purposes. So
Say, I want to give $100 to the choir. That's specifically for the choir. So there are other funds given and designated for specific areas of the church. So about 100.
And a big part of that is the trustees piece, in which this year we had 13,000 from a settlement on an easement of the property, plus a significant amount in rent from
Westminster.
Westminster. So I know 130 sounds like a lot, but a big part of that is for trustees, which is needed to support the building. And then the youth are constantly raising funds, and those funds are set aside specifically for their retreats. So most of it is designated for some purposes. Well, it's all designated for a purpose.
Great questions. Anything else? Well, we'll move into worship, the second service. But again, we want to say a huge thank you to all of you for taking time. You care about this place and the ways that we are growing. If you have other questions, finance questions, questions about what's happening in the United Methodist Church or our local church, please reach out. We're here to help, and we want to be transparent in who we are here at Grace. So please reach out and ask those questions. I think James is going to close us in prayer.
Thank you. I don't know about everybody else, but I always enjoy these meetings just to know where we are and where we're going. If you'll join me in prayer. Dear God, thank you for your amazing power and work in our lives. Thank you for your goodness and your blessings over us. Thank you that you are able to bring us hope even through the toughest of times. Strengthen us for your purposes. Thank you for your great love and care. Thank you for your mercy and grace. Thank you that you will always be with us and never leave us. Thank you for your incredible sacrifice so that we might have freedom in life. Forgive us for what we don't thank you enough, for who you are, for all that you do, for all that you've given. Help us to set our eyes and hearts afresh on you. Renew our spirits and fill us with peace and joy. We love you and need you this day and every day. We give thanks to you and praise to you. You alone are worthy. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all again for being a part.